All right, it's week 7. I'm Doc V. This is the Escape course, and we finally reached a point where we can explore the algorithms that we've been building up to all this time. Let's check them out. All right, so we're going to take a look at the EquiLAJ now. We're going to go ahead and click over here. We're going to go ahead and once again inside of our personal drop-down, we're going to look at the individual scenario that we were working on before. So we're going to get that scenario that we need for this particular run of the algorithm. My neighbor's trained dog, barking in the middle of the night, so on and so forth. Now, so when you're talking about the EquiLAJ, this is an algorithm which does a comparison. It looks at how you answer the survey down here, but it also looks at, it takes a look at your profile. So your equilibrium for yourself is provided by the profile. It provides enough information to the system to establish the equilibrium of the things that you believe in. So inside the report, your equilibrium that represents, let's say, the beliefs that you have in accordance with yourself, there's a little blue dot, which will be somewhere inside of the graph. The survey, as you answer, as you go through and answer the questions here with regards to the scenario, will create a yellow marker. And that yellow marker and the blue ideally should overlap. I mean, they should be really close. That's typically what we're looking at, what we're looking for. And what that means is that as you answered the questions here in the survey, you went through the scenario, the equilibrium from this particular scenario, if it is in line with all intents and purposes what you believe in the profile that you filled out, well, then those two markers should be close to one another. And that's typically where this is going. That's how it's designed. And again, this is not a system, okay? I mean, it's not a system for you to be running your life with. These questions that you have here are worded in such a way, I mean, these are things that should be going through your head all the time, right? I mean, whenever you're doing things, these are the kind of things that, these are the things that you ought to be thinking about. Not that you have to, of course. Judge for yourself. Take your own stand. But these are things that should be automatic, okay? And so what we have here is a convenient tool that allows us to survey. I mean, you can survey yourself and then look at the outcome and assess how it looks with regards how it looks to your particular equilibrium. All right. So where the neighbor's untrained dog, the barking in the middle of the night, the actions that we're focusing on, I should report neighbors to the police. As we're looking in the text, there are lots of ways we can use this EquiLAJ a lot of ways. From my point of view, so I'm going to fill this EquiLAJ out as if it's me. All right. So I'm going to be asking myself these questions. It behooves you really to consider what the outcome would be from the point of view of the neighbors, really, right? I mean, that's where this comes in. That's where you see the value. Looking at that, run it one time for yourself, my point of view, and then run it again. Walk a mile in their shoes. and then run the algorithm from their point of view, or at least from what you believe what their point of view might be, and then see how things reconcile out. For brevity's sake, I'm just going to go through for my point of view here. So reporting to neighbors, self-determination, it does. I can choose to do it. That will be a yes. I'll pick up the phone. I'll send a message, so on and so forth. Are there obstacle present that might impede me in some way? That might stop me from making a report? No, I see nothing standing in the way of that. Some of these, as you look at this particular scenario, in this survey, you'll see NA, not applicable. Others do not. The fields where you don't see an NA, you should be able to come up with an answer for. Some things just might not be applicable depending on what your scenario is, like this one. So a fair distribution of resources, tasks, or objects, we're not really talking about that. No real bearing on anything here. Equitable application of rules and controls. I would assume, right? As we did this, that there might be equitable controls and rules are applied once the authorities were involved. I'm going to say maybe yes. All right. Does it provide something for someone to make amends? Nope. I'm doing this, and I really didn't consider the neighbors doing something to fix things. I'm just making a call. Is there a process for the application of impartial application of consequences? I would assume it would be impartial. If I were to call the authorities and knock on a door, it happened to me. We had cars parked on the side of the street. Neighbors call the cops all the time. It's a canyon. The cars are parked all over the place and they're never being moved. All right, whatever. So when the cops knocked on the door, said what they had to say. If cars hadn't been moved, sure enough, the cops chalked up on the wheels on the asphalt, and yeah, the cars are still there. Called up the boys, move the cars, and that was that. That's the way it was. Now, I don't know if I would have called the authorities on someone else parking their car in the street, but the neighbors did it. So they must have had a reason for doing so. I don't hold it against them because it was legal, period. My boys, according to the statutes, were in the wrong. And that was the way that it was. And we executed and we fixed it. Problem solved. So the course of action, I'm going to say this maybe yes. Right here, looking at this question, there's going to be a positive effect for me. Does the course of action, is there any kind of short-term sacrifice? I don't see it. Does it positively affect my community and practice? I do. If my family is here, then I'll go with a maybe yes. Family might be kept up in the middle of the night with a bunch of dogs barking. So be it. Does it support my moral code? I don't really see how that is applicable. So sometimes you'll go through and fill out the survey. As you started out, the drop-down boxes weren't really present. There's a description to describe kind of what you're supposed to be typing inside of here. What I do is type descriptive text. So I'm typing, yes, I had the liberty to make the call, and nothing can stop me from making it. That's what I put here about liberty. Nothing stopping me from making it to the authorities. Why? Why? Because I don't know. Because I'm a maniac. I don't know. That's what I did. I had the liberty to do such a thing. With regards to altruism, what am I looking at here? I'm thinking about it. Yes. It does look like there would be positive effects if the authorities actually came out and did something. let's see. I'll put some descriptive text in here to describe why I answered the way I did up above. Let's see. Because I made the report, I would expect that authorities would resolve the issues for me and my family. So, that's what I would think. I would expect something to be resolved. Is it, I'm looking at justice? What am I actually talking about here? It's not applicable for resources and tasks. I'm expecting something. Equitable application and impartial application. So down here in this descriptive text, I'll say something, I believe, any type of response should be impartial and it should be fair. Come on. No discrimination. Don't harass the people. Don't bother. Don't single them out. I don't want anybody to be disparaged. The authorities go out there, lay down the law, what the statutes are, let them know, let that be that. And so that in this particular scenario, that's what I would believe would be happening. So I believe impartial outcomes are desired. So once you actually have those things there, you can be more descriptive inside of those notes. When you're filling out these analyses, whether you're filling them out for the course or you're actually using these in Purveyor Tech Social. If you're using PS analysis posts and other external social media environments, it helps to be as descriptive as you can with regards to some of the things that you fill out so that you can explain why you selected the answers in the survey. When the AI processes the algorithm, it doesn't really read your responses here. It kind of does read it, but they don't really read for understanding. They're not learning from anything that you read here. They might read for clarity, make sure the language is clear. Click on Analyze, take a look at it. And as we look at the graph here, so remember when you're using the default mode of the algorithms, it uses default data. So the equilibrium, it does not, you'll see 333, the equilibrium is smack dab in the center. It doesn't look at your profile to derive your individual equilibrium. The AI will look at your profile. So you're looking at this thing, it starts to resolve it out. Liberty was the strongest in my survey. Altruism and justice was rather weak. So what you're looking at it, that's why you see it the way that it is. So the strongest pull from our survey was really towards liberty. You had altruism and justice inside of there. They're almost equal. We had, for all intents and purposes, an equal weighting on the altruism and justice. So that's what this graph actually shows. It shows the equilibrium of this scenario far away from my equilibrium. So it's not where it is in the center. So if my equilibrium was flat out in the middle and this scenario evaluated way over here, I'm not too close to where the core of what I believe actually is. One other thing I wanted to point out is that when you're looking at this, you're looking at this current equilibrium for this particular thing, for this particular scenario, it says there's a negative deviation from equilibrium. So you're looking at it this way. This is like a two-dimensional graph that you're seeing with your eyes. There actually is a third dimension to it. Think of this thing, the triangle here is kind of flat, but the marker could actually sit below the plane of the graph, or it actually could sit above the plane of the graph. So that's the third dimension. So that's actually what it's conveying here, and that's kind of how it works. What we're talking about is that the current equilibrium for this is less than strength or conviction from what your specific equilibrium is. And sometimes what you're doing, it could be resolved out that the equilibrium of what you believe in the scenario is actually stronger than what you feel natively. So that's where the positive and negative deviation for this marker comes from. That's what it's actually doing. Sometimes it's on the same level as your equilibrium, and that's okay as well. Once again, you can go out and save this information. I clicked on the button, which I'm going to do. I'll select it for grins and giggles. I'll open up a file, save this information, type it up, and let that be that. Saving this stuff here, and then close my window. So, all right. So we executed the algorithms. We have the sCA. You can still see the sCA report. You'll still see the Z report of the EquiLAJ report. And now you see the EquiLAJ's report. If you look at each one, you click there inside of that individual screen. So, that was the report in this individual algorithm. So on and so forth. So we can close all of these windows, these individual reports, because we're done with them. I'm not exactly sure if I saved this EquiLAJ. I'm going to go ahead and I don't think I did. I have that there. Let's save this information. Creating my file, selecting this stuff, paste it in there, save my file, name it correctly, and then make sure that stuff is saved. All right, so now I have that saved. I'll go ahead and close my window, and that's done. Okay, so now, once we actually have our reports, once we've actually done the analysis for that particular scenario, let's say it's done. We've closed our browser. Later in the day, we'll open our browser up again. We can still get access to the reports that we ran before. I'll click on Analyses, and that'll open up this window from the gateway. And what you'll find here, there was another one that I was usually using for weights and previously, but this is the one here that we're working on just today. So it tells me that the analysis present are the sCA, EquiLAJ, and EquiLAJ, and then there's my scenario, neighborhoods, untrained dog, blah, 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 blah. If you were to click on the little icon here, it'll open up the report, and this time, as opposed to the first time when they were separate windows or separate tabs, they're all contained in the same window now. So all of the reports are here now in this particular place. You can always, once again, you can get a printable forms of the things, so on and so forth. That's what that actually is, and that's what the analysis does for you. All right. That's what that list provides for you. So, and it'll go on and on, paying attention to what the scenario is. It usually orders these things by date. So that's what that is, and that's how that works. So let's take a look at the queue now. All right. So we're going to take a look at what the queue actually represents inside of these tools that we have here. The first thing you'll notice is that I'm back here over here in the EquiLAJ, and we'll just use the EquiLAJ as the example here. You'll find that the AppSati are actually online. Before, when we were using the algorithm, it was a red indicator. But green? Oh, green for go? I guess. It means that the AppSati are actually online, and they are, doing their thing. They're doing stuff. What do the AppSati actually do? They really do the bulk of the assessments. They do a lot of the assessments for the course materials that you're actually going through. They run the algorithms. So So let's say when you're going through and you're doing the course, right? Week 7 and 8 requires that you look at various scenarios that are presented. You will paste those scenarios into the screen there. You'll go through the surveys. You do it, submit it. It'll get executed. You're back over here and you're looking at the output report. You're going to go over here. You're going to save this information. So this is what you actually submit in the assignment. So it'll ask you, it'll present a scenario for you to look at. It might tell you to run the SCA. It might tell you to run the Accusium on it, and then submit your results inside of a text field. So what you're actually doing, all you're really doing is control all, copy this information, and then you're going to paste it into the text field in your assignment. The whole thing. Make sure you copy everything, and select everything, and then copy. Because when you submit it, Ellie is the AppSati who does the assessments. Ellie will execute your algorithms. She will invoke it. She'll make sure you fill things out correctly, that it was formed, that it actually is an algorithm that you're submitting. It will be doing and assessing the execution of it. It doesn't really look at the context. The AI is not really judging you. No. Looking at what you're doing, so on and so forth. No, that's really on you. It really assesses the form and function of what it is that you submitted. So that's what you're actually doing with regards to the course and the course materials and those particular lessons at the end. But what I wanted to talk about right now is just kind of submitting it to the AI. When you run the algorithms, you don't have to submit it to the AppSati. I mean, there's a checkbox at the bottom. It defaults to not send it to Ellie. If you do want to send it, there's extra information in each one of these algorithms. So the easiest thing to look at right now is what happens with the profile. So let's click on our gear and look at our settings and look at the profile. And what you find here is that there is another section that opened up once the AI were online. So once the AppSati are online, this new section is open here. So it talks about the ecological footprint, country of residence, age, it looks at monthly income and debt, education level. What is this stuff actually used for? I mean, it's used to help identify, truly, your greed line. And your greed line is really used in the Accusium algorithm. It's not really used in the EquiLAJ or the SCA, but it is used in the Accusium. All right? I mean, your ecological footprint, you might not even know what this thing is. Well, there's a link out to a really awesome site which talks about the impact you have, on the planet. I mean, I'd go out and look at it and use the tool. When it came down to it, my impact was 8.7, which is kind of high for what I do, where I live, the car I have, how far I drive to work, how much electricity I use, how much meat I eat, the fuel I consume, the electricity. I mean, it covers all kinds of things. It's really neat. It's really well put together. It's a non-profit tool that exists out there that explores your impact on the world. Country of residence, of course, the list is there. Age and years, that seems straightforward. Put mine in there. You don't have to put this down. I mean, think about it. Again, what you're keeping in mind is what? We're looking at the ability for the AI to be able to assess a level of greed that's unique to you. I mean, we speak about that inside of the text. We frequently have the ability, we're in government. I mean, we kind of know where you don't have enough. We have poverty lines. We just don't really have a universal greed line where you have too much or you have enough. It depends on how you want to look at it. So the algorithm actually includes calculation for that, which is based upon research. It's inside of the text. I do talk about this stuff, so on and so forth. I think you put your education level there, it goes there. It doesn't really affect the execution of the EquiLAJ, to be perfectly honest with you. It was defaulted with a bunch of zeros. I mean, that's all you really need for that to work. I just put my stuff in there anyway, just because I can. I mean, that to be accurate, to be honest with you. I mean, people are like, I'm not going to tell you what my monthly and debt payments are. Come on, man. Look, I understand completely the privacy issues. I'm cool with that. You can just put it at zeros. All I'm saying is that it helps the algorithm and it helps Ellie to be able to assess it and establish a better green line and better refine your degree of certainty in the accusation. I mean, if you leave it at zero, it's fine. I mean, it does impact how the green line is calculated. Is this information kept? I mean, once again, I told you. The AI, the systems do not keep your profile information. This is only local, internal to your browser on this particular machine. So if you were to clear your cache as soon as you clear your browser, it's gone. I mean, you'll have to put stuff back in. Hopefully, you would have saved your profile. So I'll just go ahead and submit it and let that be done. So what I am saying, I'm going to go ahead and submit it, and I'm going to submit it to the app study and actually see what it looks like. Now, when I submitted it to the app study, the first thing I see is I get a dang for my submission. I didn't get that immediate report results. It would go to the queue, and here, I mean, this is something where I actually have something sitting. If there were multiple reports, then I'd have multiple things listed. I mean, I could have an accusium, an SCA. It depends on how quickly Ellie is actually assessing the submissions that are out there. This is limited. So this queue is limited to the scenario that you're doing. So you can't submit multiple scenarios to the AI and have them pop up in the queue. So if you are going to be submitting something and there are multiple reports, well, then the scenarios have to be consistent between them all. All right. So you have the thing there. I mean, how do you know when it's done? I mean, it'll tell you. I mean, you can refresh the page to see if it is done. So I'm gonna move over here and make sure the AI is assessing this, and then we'll see what actually happens. So Ellie's gonna go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so I know now that the AI, Ellie has gone through and assessed this particular algorithm and submitted her results. So when it is done, it'll say it's ready. You'll have a little download outline, pressing the button, it will give you the reports. We'll click on the EquiLAJ there, and this is what I was talking about. So when I said when you submit it to Ellie, Ellie looks at additional data. All right. So this is what it looked like on the default with a generic execution. The equilibrium for myself is defaulted smack dab in the middle because that's default. But over here, when you submitted it to Ellie, the equilibrium it's slightly shifted, and it took in extra data from the profile, calculated out your equilibrium, and it's slightly off from center. That was, and it's going to be that way for different people, depending on how the things you believe inside of the profile. The outcome for assessing the equilibrium for that scenario was still there, all right? Because that data was the thing that was processed. Now, the outcome now submitting to the AI, the outcome is actually farther away from my equilibrium, all right? So that's what you're actually looking at here. That's how it's different. That's how it actually works with regards to submitting your algorithms to the AI. So if they aren't online, you can still submit your algorithm to the AI, but it'll just sit in the queue forever until Ellie gets around to looking at it. I mean, what's the frequency of Ellie looking at the algorithm? It just kind of depends. It depends on how many things are out there. I mean, if there are multiple instances of LE, LEO, LE1, LE2, LE3, so on and so forth, they're out there and they're assessing things. They're doing their work. The frequency can be questionable. I'm not exactly sure. So it just depends. So when you're doing things for the assignments in the course, you don't have to submit it to the AI. Just submit the default execution, get the report, select it, select all your information, copy it, and paste it into the text field for your assignment, and then submit it, and it'll work perfectly fine. I would save your information. I mean, I'd run this, save it into a file just so you have it in case. I mean, this is technology. All kinds of things happen. You can be running stuff and systems lock up, blue screening, and everybody's done it. We've lost power. We've all lost data before. Do yourself a favor. Create a copy of that stuff so you're not screwing yourself over. So you want to type that stuff all over again. Now that's what I would do. The use of purveyor text systems and the UI and all of these things, it implies that you kind of already know how to use computing systems, whatever environment you're in. So I was talking about down here, saving this off. I said save it off to a file. You must keep in mind that you can't really paste this into, Microsoft Word. You try and paste this into Apple Pages or some of these other word processing tools, it's just not going to work typically because those tools include other white space characters. And if you were to try and submit it, you paste it in there, copy it, and then paste it into the field and the CMS, or try and reload it back into your algorithms. So let's say if I wanted to try and reload it back and there's invisible white space characters, it's just not going to work. It's going to break. It's just not going to work. So whatever operating system you are on, you need to use a text editor, just a plain text editor. And slap this inside a Vi or Notepad or text edit. I don't know. Make sure whatever it is you save as plain text. It's your tool, it's your apps, your software, your operating system, your setup. These are the things that you simply kind of need to know before you started working on the things here and this kind of stuff. It's up to you and how you do things. So that's pretty much what we're talking about here with the algorithms and how you use them, what they're used for, what the queue is, what the analysis lists does, and so on and so forth. That should get you going with, at the very least, generating some of the algorithms in the course materials. And so there you have it. I mean, that's what we're actually talking about with these algorithms, how you use them, what they do, where they might work, where they might come up short, so on and so forth. They are part of the course. So then as you go through it, there are assignments that you need to do for this particular week. Perform those things. The profile that you actually create, once again, is kept on your system. It's never stored by us. So it's, as soon as you clear the cookies and information in your browser, you clear your cache, the profile's gone. Okay, so we don't track or keep any of that kind of information. But the AIs themselves, as they go about learning, just like me, I mean, as I assess my papers at school, again, once a student, let's say, were to hand in a written assignment, I don't unread it. I mean, I've read it. It's part of who I am. I remember a student wrote a paper with me about some type of deer with antlers and lasers and somebody hunting it with some type of lightsaber weapon in the middle of some moonlit night. I will never forget that paper, ever. That's how intellects work. I guess I take that back. I mean, I could forget it over time. I could lose the pathways to that particular thing, but nevertheless, that's what we're actually talking about. So Go out there, explore the assignment that you actually have to do. Use the algorithms. Again, there are no right and wrong answers with this. Use them, learn from them, and move on. All right? As always, I thank you for attending the course. I will see you next week. Jiffy Tayos.